open-ended types of communication, not closed-ended types of communication. So because so many guys are really always trying to get to the point, get results, gauge their game, they're always talking to girls in very closed, direct, not open to interpretation terms. So they're having these very closed types of communication, which are very yes-no answers when you're verbally interacting with a girl, or when you're creating a situation for you to meet up with the girl later on, you know, like after you met her the first time or once you get the number. So you got to make the shift to having open-ended types of conversations. And what that is, for example, when you're in the bar talking to chicks or a day game or a first date or whatever it might be, what most efficient type guys are likely to say are things like, what do you study? Which is like a one-word answer. Or what's your job? Again, a one-word answer. Alternatives to that, open types of conversation, alternatives to that would be, what do you want to study? And then why? Which is a far deeper, more open to interpretation conversation. What do you want to do for a job? What's your dream job, as opposed to what do you do, where are you from? So I know that in the bar you're thinking, okay, what's the best and fastest way to get laid, get more action, get a hot girl? You've got to think, the truth is the fastest way to get that is to be more vague and open to interpretation. So for example, if you're texting and you want to meet up with a chick, you don't want to procedurally say, hey, where do you live? Do you want to meet up? What's the best time for you? You want to have an open-ended conversation where you're continually talking about what you're doing. Almost like you're a Facebook feed for the chick's life. Okay, you're like a news feed or like a newspaper feed for her life. So you're constantly talking about what you're doing. You're going to a bar on the weekend, you're going to a friend's party, you're going for a walk in the park, you're taking your dog for a walk, you're doing your laundry, and you're creating a situation where she could contribute as opposed to being very definitive with what you want to do, where you want to do it, and lacking space for her to interpret. Another good example is when guys get a phone number and walk away from a girl, a mistake that a lot of guys will make is they'll say, I will call you, I will text you, and we'll make this plan, we'll go on a date. It's a lot better to not say, I want to call you, I want to text you, I don't want to go on a date, because imagine if you get that phone number from the girl in the bar, after you front door rule her, you leave her at the end of the night, you met all of her friends, you take the phone number, kiss her on the cheek, pleasure to meet you, and you just walk off without any hint of planning to meet her, she's going to think a lot more about meeting up with you later, or wondering why you didn't set a meetup, because she should be a gorgeous girl, you should be confident, you should be polite, you should be diplomatic. She's going to be like, why didn't he desperately try to set a date with me like every other guy does? So that's when you're going to start to stand out. The girl's going to be thinking, what does it mean? Why didn't he say something? He should have said something. Why isn't he texting? He has my fucking number. What the hell? So by saying less, by being less direct, there's a lot more kind of mental masturbation on the girl's part. A great example from your point of view is if you went for a job, right? If you go for a job and you do the interview, you give them your resume, and the interviewers don't say anything. The interviewers say to you, cool. They give you a thumbs up, they say, cool, you can go now. You walk out of that interview having no idea how the interviewers or how the authorities have perceived you. And of course, you want that job, you want that callback, and you're gonna walk away wondering, how did I go? Did I get it? What did they think? They didn't give me any fucking signs. And that's gonna fill your mind and your emotions a lot more than if the interviewers said to you, awesome, we'll call you at this time, on this day, be prepared in A, B, C, D, E ways, and we think you did very, very well, you're in with a good chance. You're gonna walk away from there kind of relieved, and you might then start feeling like a bit of a diva. You know, you might start thinking, well, maybe I should demand more money. Maybe I deserve a better job. Maybe this job's too easy. So when you make it too succinct and reassured for the girl, there's no fear of loss, no potential misinterpretation. So also, you want to allude to things, right? So instead of saying, giving them exact details of things you're doing, you want to start the conversation in a slow rolling way that can build momentum. So you might start saying, oh, me and my friends went to a rooftop bar and we're having drinks over there. Or me and my friends who started with Instagram, it's getting really good. Now, when you drop rooftop bar, Instagram, like basically girl talk type of stuff, art gallery, travel, fashion, food, or whatever, then of course you're making it easy for them to be in a position to contribute, where they can say, oh, I know this restaurant, or I know a rooftop bar, or I do Instagram, I'm doing a lot of Snapchat now. So it's just kind of like updating them with my day. A theory that I use when interacting with girls or going from the meeting to the meetup, like going through the text phase, is I want to really imagine that the girl is a pen pal from a different city. Okay, imagine that. Instead of texting her, really wanting to meet up with her, instead I'm acting like she lives in a whole different continent and I'm seeing this fountain. I'm like, this is pretty cool, or an interesting meal at a restaurant. Like, that's kind of cool. So imagine the girl, even if she lives 3 blocks away, have the same kind of enthusiasm to share your experience like you're traveling and sharing something that she might not have seen before because you're imagining that you're in a different city, okay? Then you're gonna facilitate a far better text interaction that is open to engagement rather than procedurally just trying to get on a date and go towards getting action. Furthermore, every single individual girl has a subjective reality, right? So they have a feeling or an image in their head of what they want you to be. So they can kind of basically paint and fill in their image of you in their own head if you give them space to do that. So, for example, if you say that you work with a certain type but you don't want to speak more about it, it's kind of mysterious. You say you're going traveling, it's for work, it's kind of boring, you don't want to talk about it, that's mysterious. Basically, withdrawing from the conversation or excluding big chunks of details allow them to then project onto you their idea of what they hope you can be. And when you're going to lead up from like meeting to date, they have all this potential and this good hope and this excitement that you are what they hope you're going to be, instead of you collapsing their hope that you are what they want you to be by talking too much. I was on a date with a girl today and she said that she had been dating other guys who looked really good, but when they started speaking, she realized that they couldn't possibly be what she hoped they were, and that might be a really confident, relaxed, outgoing, expressive, forgiving, challenging type of guy. When the guy talks too much, when you talk too much, if you really still feel like you're not really made in life, talk less and have an interaction rather than talking more and succinctly and distinctly and planning and having basically a verbal dictatorship in the way that you tell the girl the way that the things you want to be. So you get the point. Made it as best I possibly can. Say less. Be vague. Allude to ideas. Don't be so direct. Give them space to be artistic, to interpret, to misunderstand, to dream, to project. And all of a sudden you've got this really nice X factor, this like invisible God particles flying around that can become whatever you want them to be in the interaction. Okay, they're like stem cells. Okay, like particles of stem cells that you kind of float out into the air where you're doing not much. Physically your presence is there. Your presence might be with them because you're continually texting and Snapchatting, really simple stuff like a fountain or a meal, but you're giving them space to fill in the gaps, which girls love to do, okay? They like to imagine the potential best, imagine the potential worst. They really enjoy that, and they're gonna find out when they meet you in person, okay? It's like an unraveling mystery that satisfies their curiosity.